Yet they also have incredibly high rates of anxiety, depression, alcoholism.
현재 미국에서 가장 인기 있는 작가이자 인플루언서인 마크 맨슨.
And they lead the world in suicide.
엄청난 수의 팔로워를 거느린 그의 미디어 파워는 메이저 언론을 뛰어넘을 정도인데요. 그런 그가 대한민국을 세계에서 가장 우울한 나라라고 일컬으며 그 원인을 분석하기 위해 한국을 찾았습니다.
I've come to Korea to find out why.
우리 사회가 가진 문제의 원인을 분석하기 위해 여러 한국인을 만나고 우리의 문화를 접하던 그는 점점 한국에 빠져들고 마는데요.
Now, despite all the things that we've been talking about, I fucking love Korea. I've loved my time here.
마침내 한국에 매료된 그는 한국이 초강대국이 될 수밖에 없는 이유로 이것을 꼽습니다.
It's not the incredible economic growth or the newfound pop culture dominance, but rather there's a resilience here that is rare and special in the world.
마크 맨슨이 이야기하는 한국의 슈퍼파워가 무엇인지 그를 따라가 보겠습니다.
We're going to understand how the unique intersection of culture, history, and technology is driving many of the psychological problems in Korea. And I'm going to eat the spiciest fucking thing I have ever put in my mouth.
I'm going to cry. I'm crying.
그가 먼저 주목한 것은 특이하게도 1990년대 유행한 게임 스타크래프트였습니다.
When I moved out here, one of the things that surprised me was the work ethic. They were the first place where they had what you'd call like a pro team house. There's like 15 to 16 players. You know, bedrooms with bunk beds stacked on top of each other, and then the living room looks similar to like a PC cafe, basically. And so they created environments for training. When you get these little ecosystems where all these people are sharing these secrets and driving each other and pushing each other to get better and better, that's when you really saw Koreans start to just completely dominate.
But what's remarkable about the StarCraft story is that Koreans have taken the same formula for success and replicated it across multiple industries. And what's crazy is we'll see that the same factors and formula that allowed Korea to dominate esports is what would eventually lead them to dominate pop culture around the world. But at the same time, I couldn't help but think of the psychological fallout it was creating.
최고를 탄생시키기 위한 압력과 경쟁이 한국인에게 어떤 영향을 미쳤는지 더 알아보기 위해 그는 심리학자이자 작가인 이서연 씨를 만납니다.
There's a lot of pressure in the education.
Not only education, all the Korean society is very, very competitive. So there are a lot of perfectionists in Korea. If you don't get 100 points, then you fail. And I think it's really connecting to depression.
Yeah.
Like,
To understand Korea's perfectionism, we must first understand Korea's history, specifically the conflict with North Korea.
See, the economic miracle of South Korea in the 20th century, it wasn't a question of ambition or even choice. It was a question of survival.
Korea spent most of the early 20th century under a brutal occupation by the Japanese Empire. Then, after being liberated in World War II, the peninsula became the first ideological flashpoint of the Cold War. South Korea had no choice but to develop as quickly as possible.
To build the country economically, the government had to institute an absolutely brutal educational system. The result of this was just an insane amount of pressure and expectation put on young Koreans.
이어서 정신건강과 스트레스에 대해 이야기하던 맨슨은 서양과 달리 유독 한국인의 사회 경제적 압박에 영향을 미치는 두 가지 중요한 영향에 대해 언급하는데요.
What can cause depression? Well, a lot of things. First, there's your physical health. Second, there's stress. Third, there's social isolation and loneliness. Now, these first three, these are the same in the West as well. Americans are pretty fucking unhealthy and stressed, and we too are undergoing our own loneliness epidemic. But the next two factors strike me as particularly problematic in Korea. Up until now, we've talked about the intense socioeconomic pressures placed on Koreans, but we haven't talked about another major influence of Korean culture, an influence that goes back over 2,000 years.
If you want to understand the culture here, you have to look at Confucianism. This is the most Confucian society in the world.
In Confucianism, there is no individual. Everything revolves around the family. The more you sacrifice for the family, the better person you are. The less you're willing or able to sacrifice, the more you are shamed and judged. In Confucian cultures, mental health issues such as depression or PTSD, they're not seen as a cause for empathy, but rather they are judged as a failure of character. This is why Korea has a deceptively low diagnosis rate for stuff like anxiety or depression. People are so ashamed that they never speak up and talk about it. In a sad way, Korea seems to have kept the worst parts of Confucianism, the shame and judgment, while also discarding the best part, the closeness with family and community. Meanwhile, they've adopted the worst aspects of capitalism, the glitzy materialism and striving for fuck you money, while ignoring the best parts of it, the capacity for self-expression and individualism. Now, the combination of these conflicting values, in my personal opinion, is probably what leads to so much stress and despair. It's almost like the mental health crisis here is the collateral damage of one of the most incredible success stories in world history.
한국인의 우울한 정신건강의 원인을 분석하기 위해 여러 사람을 만나고 다양한 한국 문화를 경험하던 맨스는 점점 한국 문화의 매력을 느끼게 되는데요.
I've loved my time here. It is such a cool and considerate and conscientious culture. I love the foam that they put on the car doors to make sure that they don't dent the cars next to them. I love the food, even though I don't know what half of it is. And to be honest, between the PC bangs, the fried chicken, and the nightlife, I think if I came here in my 20s, I never would have left.
I couldn't help but find myself constantly having fun in Korea.
그리고 그가 만난 사람들을 통해 한국이 그간 이룬 성과의 원인과 함께 앞으로도 강대국으로 진화할 수밖에 없는 한 가지 중요한 이유를 발견하게 됩니다.
To my surprise, every Korean I told about this video was excited that I was making it and anxious to tell me about their experiences. They acknowledged that it is a real problem in their society, and they desperately hoped for some sort of solution. And I guess what I realized is that this was Korea's superpower all along. It's not the incredible economic growth or the newfound pop culture dominance, but rather, there's a resilience here that is rare and special in the world. Learning about their culture and their history, you realize the Koreans always find a way. Whether it's surviving a century of occupation and war, or willing themselves to economic and cultural excellence in the face of annihilation, they always find a way. Today, the country's challenges have shifted. Koreans must look inward, away from the dangerous horizon and into the depths of their inner horizon. It is a new problem set, a new existential challenge they face. But after my brief time here, I believe they will find a way.
Bedrooms with bunk beds stacked on top of each other. Bedrooms with bunk beds stacked on top of each other. Bedrooms with bunk beds stacked on top of each other.
2. The peninsula became the first ideological flashpoint of the Cold War. 2. The peninsula became the first ideological flashpoint of the Cold War. 2. The peninsula became the first ideological flashpoint of the Cold War. There's a resilience here that is rare and special in the world. There's a resilience here that is rare and special in the world. There's a resilience here that is rare and special in the world.